Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be installing some foam board insulation, but I picked up some 2-inch ISO foam board from a local siding roofing supply house. And then I got the ISO guard. So this is the brand that we got. There's also Firestone I've seen. This is a closed cell, so the R value is a little bit higher than some of the other foam boards you can get. It's supposed to be between 6 and 7 per inch. So essentially it should be an R12 to R14. And then I got 2 inches because my legs are about 2.5. So this will give it just enough clearance and then maybe even leave a little bit of an air gap still. I already went ahead and just marked a few, as I noticed they're not all the same of space width. And I put one up just to kind of see. Essentially you just cut it to fit, it just shoves into place. And once I get a few of them up, I'll tape the seam down the center and that'll close up any of the air gaps. But let's get started on that. And this stuff's pretty light. The whole thing, this is 24 pieces. This isn't gonna be enough to do the whole garage, but it'll get started. The whole thing weighs about 200 pounds. So you're able to move it around, and then each board is only a few pounds itself. So I found easy way to cut it is to get yourself some clamps to get a straight line, measure it with tape measure, and then clamp on a piece of 2x4. So we're going to be doing the one in the corner, so it's a 42 3/4. So let's get a rough. And it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but this at least makes us have a straight line. And since this material is just foam, you can use a utility knife, X-Acto blade. I have just a longer blade on my Sawzall just because that makes it pretty easy. Alright. And then save these pieces because if you're like me, you have the window. And maybe you can make it fit in between the window or where your outlets are. Make it fit around. So let's see if we got this one pretty close and if it'll shove in place. So this one specifically is just like paper faced. They do make some of the foam boards that have foil facings. So that's also an option. But since I already have my radiant barrier up, I don't need any of the foil facing ones since this other side is foil faced. And if you want to see my video for radiant barrier insulation, put it in the description. Essentially, this is just pushing into place. And I'm gonna put a little bit of tape just to make sure it doesn't fall out. And when I get all of the pieces in, I can just run the tape all the way down it, and that'll be good to go. You can go with whatever thickness you want. Like I said, I specifically just chose 2 inches to fill up the whole gap. But if 2 inches is too expensive, you can always get like 1 to 1.5 inch. And that'll still be a nice extra insulation. So let's do another one. This one we're gonna have to cut out around the outlet. So we'll see how that one goes. And this specific one I got from my local roofing siding warehouse. This is usually what they use on the roofs of commercial buildings. So it's actually pretty stiff because you'll be able to walk on it for all the commercial flat roofs. So that's why I kind of chose this one too. It's a bit more durable compared to some of the other options. And when I compared pricing, this was about $36 a board. And if you go to your like local Lowe's or Home Depot, they had the cheaper stuff. It was about $30 to $32 a board, but it wasn't ISO specifically. It was EPS and XPS foam boards. Their insulation value is just not as high. So it was roughly similar pricing. So it wasn't too bad on that. All right, so we need about 42 1/4 for this side. Let's get it pretty close. And these clamps I just got at my local Harbor Freight. You can get them at Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart probably even sells them. So it doesn't really matter where you pick them up, but it's nice just to make you get a straight line. If you're comfortable with it, you can also get a chalk line and snap it. So you just clip it on the side and run it all the way across and just snap a chalk line. In the event you wanted to use a different cutting method, other than like a Sawzall. You can also use like a drywall saw. They're long enough to cut through it, but the Sawzall is a little bit less labor intensive. All right, and then I'm gonna cut out for the outlet. So it's about 32 1/2 to 37, and it's 4 inches out. Let's see. So roughly right here, somewhere in the 37 mark. And I have a little bit of wiring right there on the top. So I'm just gonna angle this a little bit. Just to try and leave a little bit of room for that. Let's see how close we are. So I'm going to have to trim a little bit more for these outlets. Looks like I cut a little bit too much here, so I'll just shove some scrap in there. There you go. It's coming along. And any little gaps you have, you'll just be able to fill them in with the scrap pieces. So let's do a little bit more, kind of like a little time lapse of it. I'll put a few more pieces and you can just kind of see the general method. All right, so my battery died. So I'm not sure exactly where it cut off at, but it doesn't look like it showed this side. So just under the window, didn't have any outlets, so it was just a nice easy cut. And then right here, I just taped over it since had a seam in the center. So it was just 11 inches wide, 36 inches tall. Like I said, I just grabbed a few of my scrap pieces, just put them together, put a piece of tape down the center and measured it and cut it and shoved it into place. So I'm gonna set this back up, do a few more. All right, so I did a few more off camera so I could move everything out of the way so I could do this back wall. And a few days went by and I realized that the tape doesn't hold at all to this. Should have thought about it because it's just the cardboard paper backing. If you do get the foam boards that have like the foil or maybe like a smoother finish, then yeah, the tape would hold it. So I picked up some strong ties that they use for like construction when they're building homes or like decks and stuff. And I was putting them at the top now to hold everything in place because the foam board was wanting to like kind of fall forward a little bit. So here's what we got. 1 1/4, 12-inch, 20 gauge galvanized strap ties. This has a bunch of holes in it, so you can just kind of mount it up wherever you need to. And then I bought this little box of Phillips head self-tappers, just because they sit a little bit more flush, leave a little bit of a gap, but that's okay. Eventually I'll be coming back to finish the interior, maybe with like plywood or metal or something. I just don't want the foam boards to fall down for now. So let's put one on and then we'll do a little bit of time lapse to finish up this wall. And then that'll probably be about all that I have. And then doing the foam board like this, it's going to take a little longer, but allows you to kind of split up the pricing to do little sections at a time. It's a lot cheaper than spray foam. So this lets me put a little bit in at a time. But let's mount up one of these straps just so you can kind of see what I was talking about, how it just holds it in place. And then we'll set up a time lapse and just do the rest of this side for you guys. All right, so as you can see, this one has a little bit of a gap to hold it in place. So it's leaning forward some. So we'll see if this will push this one in place. All right, so that'll help hold it in place. It doesn't stick out much, so if you were just to leave them, put your plywood over, shouldn't be much of a big deal. And then on the tops, what I was doing is putting the bar halfway over it, so when I set the new piece of foam board, it catches just the bottom of it. So let's go ahead and jump back on to doing the rest of this side over here. All right, so for the ties on the corner, I just put the one here and the other one bends over to cover the top. And then I'll just end up pushing the foam board up and then back down. So we'll just mount this one up where it's going. I might actually reuse this. One more. right, so we got this piece in, got the corner one in. It's got the little lip on it, so when I put the other piece of foam board on top, it won't let it fall out as easy. And then I'll do the rest of these once I finish up this side. All right, so I got the back wall 8-foot section done, except right there in the middle, which I'll do a little later. And then half of this left side of the building. And then I still have actually 5 more pieces, so I'll be able to do a few more on this side of the building. So 24 did about half all the way across for 8 foot. And then since I have a 12-foot tall building, here to here is only 4 foot, so I'll be able to cut a piece in half. So that'll be 1 piece, that'll be 1 piece. So I only need 5 more to finish the top here, 5 more to finish here, and then here's actually a 13-foot, but I have all the scrap pieces. So I was thinking I can maybe cut a 4-foot section and then fill in with scrap just to make use of it. Maybe even use the scrap up top, or just go ahead and measure and then cut out a normal piece up top. And then I just have to finish putting in the ties across the top on this side, but I did the few in the corner and then right here across to help hold it in place. I'm still going to put some seam tape down the middle. I know it won't stick very well, but at least it seals that up better. And then where I had my electrical wiring come through, I might even get just a little bit of the canned spray foam, and just, that doesn't expand too much, and just fill that in. And in a few spots I cut by the outlet a little bit too big, I can just fill that in too. But overall, this is going well. If anybody has any questions or comments, definitely leave them below, or any recommendations if they've done this themselves. Any tips for me and anybody else is much appreciated. If you want to see how I put in the vapor barrier insulation first, the radiant barrier, I'll link that in the video as well. But I hope this helps, and we'll see you on the next one.